Be me, 26, female, dating a guy named Marcus for 2 years. Don't start with the intercourse stuff yet. Start with the little weird demands. He texts me at noon. Please, in all caps. I figure it's about cereal or chores. It's not cereal. It's always not cereal. Fast forward to Friday night. We're on my threadbare couch watching some dumb show. He's got his knees tucked like a kid. I can tell something is spinning in his head. He says he wants to try something. Ask what, expecting board game or new drink. He says he wants me to pretend something. That phrasing should have been the red flag. He asks me to call him huge while we do it. Say do it instead of the other word. I blink because this is a sentence people do not say. He throws me a look that's half shy, half pleading. He says, please be loud for me. I say okay because I am soft for slightly embarrassed men. I should have said no. First mistake. Empathy wins again. We end up in the bedroom 10 minutes later. I keep things vague in my head on purpose. He tries to frame it like a game. It's about confidence, he says. It makes me feel like a man. I've heard worse pickup lines in college. We have intercourse. He asks me to call him huge during it. He wants me to moan like it's a movie. I pretend at first. Tiny noises. Embarrassed. He gets excited. Fast. Dissonant like a siren. He finishes quick. He kisses my forehead and cries softly. I sit there with my shirt half on. Awkward as fuck, yes, but also tender. I tell myself it's fine. He cuddles me like he fixed something. But I am left with this quiet feeling. I want to feel good too. I am not allowed to be petty about being unmet. Next week it repeats. Same couch, different show, same plea. This time he wants me to call him immense. Word choices matter, apparently. He explains it's for vulnerability work. His vulnerability has drilled a new rule into intercourse. Rule 1. I must inflate reality for him. Rule 2. Honesty gets framed as cruelty. The more I try to ask for reciprocation, the more he weasels into emotional martyrdom. He says, I'd die if you left, like it's a weapon. He uses feelings like a contract clause. He escalates slowly. First it's the bedroom. Then he wants it while we're making out in public. By public I mean the cheap bar that plays indie music. We are at Devin's birthday, 3 friends, pitchers of beer. He whispers in my ear like it's an inside joke. Call me huge. Just once, in front of them. I laugh thinking it's a joke. It's not a joke. I call him huge softly like a drunk narrator. Everyone freezes for a beat. Devin laughs out loud. Thinks it's a bit. Tasha gives me a look that's like, are you okay? I feel my face turn into a matchbox. Later that night Marcus texts me several paragraphs. About how brave I was. How I comforted him. He uses terms like safety and authenticity. He says I made him feel seen. But he never asks if I'm seen. At work the next week I practice saying no. Practice because it feels foreign. Monday morning in the Slack channel someone's posting puppy pics. I answer with a gif of a cat ignoring the camera. That cat becomes my mood. I tell Marcus I don't like doing it all the time. I say maybe we could try other things. Maybe he could last longer, touch slower, prioritize foreplay. He goes quiet for long stretches on the phone. When he answers he uses therapy jargon like a tiger uses claws. It's not about performance, he says. It's about my body memory. He refuses to change anything practical. He loves the ritual of me praising him. I'm supposed to be an actor in his private play. I consider leaving the role. Instead I try negotiation. I suggest alternating moves, like songs on a playlist. He slices the suggestion with, I need this to feel okay. His vulnerability becomes an immovable object. Try to bring it up gently in the morning over coffee. He browbeats me with gratitude at the table. You don't get it, he says between bites. You thinking about your satisfaction makes me smaller. There it is, the weaponized morality. If I want to be moral, I must prioritize his feelings. I'm supposed to sign away my wants in good faith. I start to feel claustrophobic in my own bed. One Saturday we have brunch with Rachel and Luis. Rachel is loud and eats avocado toast like a pro. Marcus brings it up like it's a victory story. She called me immense, he tells them. Rachel claps, says, "Wow, that's so brave." I laugh like someone told a bizarre joke. Later that day we go to the mall. He tries to provoke me into praising him by squeezing my hand. In the jewelry store he whispers, "Say it." I refuse loudly enough the salesperson hears. Salesperson gives us a look like we've brought a small storm inside. Marcus calls me petty after the incident. "I'm just insecure, please be kind," he says. There's a line where kindness becomes control. He starts to change the rules mid-conflict. We argue about consent, which feels absurd and sharp. He tells me, consent is not a box you check. Then he insists on the precise wording I must use. The labyrinth grows more ridiculous every day. I tell my friend Gabrielle about it over text. She replies, "That sounds exhausting." And then, "Why are you still there?" Her messages are like a lantern in a dark hallway. I tell her I don't like making him cry. She says, "You are not a therapist," with a heart emoji. I feel validated and tired at once. One night, I'm with him at his parents' house. Janet, his mom, makes dinner like she built it out of love. He asks me to say something intimate at the table. I laugh, thinking he'll forget. He doesn't. He's dead serious as someone asking you about politics at Thanksgiving. I murmur something about how we're very close. His dad gives us a look like we've brought a holiday skit too far. Later in the car he says, "That was perfect," and kisses my temple. These small forced performances stack up like unpaid bills. I try to set a boundary about the bedroom language. He flips a page from a self-help book mid-argument. Reads a paragraph about shame and reclaiming masculine language. He uses the language to justify the demand. He says, "If you're my partner, you should want to help." That sentence is a trapdoor. I start keeping receipts in my head like receipts in an email thread. We go to couples therapy once because that's the grown-up option. Therapist is a middle-aged man called Henry who drinks black tea. Henry nods like every other nod in the universe. Henry asks open-ended questions with the enthusiasm of someone who read a syllabus. Marcus frames the ask as healing work again. "I need her to witness me," he says to Henry. I say, "I need reciprocation," and the word sounds small in the room. Henry says, "Both are valid," then leans back and smiles. Therapist platitudes sound like band-aids in a storm. After therapy, Marcus insists on a new condition. Condition: I must role-play praise on the phone while he records audio. He says hearing himself helped him before. He says it's exposure therapy, but in my head it's voicemail manipulation. He presses record on his phone like a priest blessing an altar. I do it once out of exhaustion. The sound of my voice saying weird compliments to him plays in my head for weeks. Playback becomes a tool for him to validate himself later. I am a soundbite in his quest for dignity. One night we go to the gym together. We're on adjacent treadmills, synchronic breathing like a bad rom-com. He whispers, "Call me colossal," while we run. I tell him to pipe down and focus on incline. He takes offense like I punched something valuable inside him. After the gym, he posts a vague Instagram story about trust exercises. Friends flood heart emojis. I stare at the screen and feel like a ghost in a house I've helped mortgage. The more I try to set limits, the more he reframes boundaries as betrayal. He starts to demand public proof of my compliments. He makes me say things into his phone while we're at his mom's art opening. An elderly artist overhears and coughs politely. I keep topping off my kindness reserves and they run dry. One night he brings a list to bed like a grocery list of feelings. Things that make me feel big, it says in teenage handwriting. Items include, "You say massive in public," and "You moan like a film actress." I feel like a bad employee reading a job description I never applied for. The list keeps getting more specific, like terms in a contract. I try to bargain with offers like, "We alternate nights." He forbids negotiation by invoking past trauma. "You don't know what I went through," he says like a shield. He weaponizes therapy, then hides behind it. He's unbearable but believable. This is the unreasonable character the rules demanded. He's absurd but looks sincere while doing it. I keep trying to be rational like it's a science project. Rationality fails because this is emotional blackmail disguised as therapy. The story starts to creep into my other relationships. My sister Tasha says you are the sane one on a call. Her words help but do not fix a mattress with a hole in it. One incident spirals everything further. We're at an out-of-town party for Devin's wedding rehearsal. Lots of people, cheap champagne, expensive shoes. He whispers, "Say it now, before the vows." I stiffen like someone who knows exposure will go too far. He pushes, light but insistent like a breeze turned gale. I say it under my breath like a cursed line from a movie. The wrong person hears it. A bridesmaid snaps a photograph of us laughing and that caption grows teeth. Social media turns our private transgression into a public punchline. People tag him, call him brave in the comments. I get DMs that feel like condolence letters for my autonomy. He posts a selfie with the caption "feeling seen" and a winking emoji. I am furious and ashamed at once. He doesn't understand how exposure turns into exploitation. He reads my silence as coldness. And then he adds a new rule mid-argument. If you don't say it when I ask, you haven't forgiven me. Forgiveness becomes a gate he holds closed. I start to keep an atlas of his moods in my head. I chart where honesty is permitted and where it gets punished. It is exhausting to be so cartographic about love. I try to reclaim my voice by refusing during a grocery run. We're in the cereal aisle and he leans in and whispers, "Play with my ego." I say nothing and walk away to buy almond milk. He follows me and throws a tantrum like an adult who lost a toy. People stare like a spontaneous theater performance. I feel humiliated for him and at him. I tell myself this is not love but codependent caretaking. I attempt an ultimatum like it's a last resort bandage. Either we get real help or I need time away, I say. His face collapses into a map of shock and blame. He accuses me of abandoning him in crisis. He compares my boundaries to cruelty in a way that makes my throat tight. I start to plan small escapes in my head. I imagine packing a bag and leaving it by the door. I test the idea by leaving a book on the couch as a placeholder. 1 week later, his demands become stranger. He asks me to lie to my friends about how intercourse makes me feel. He wants me to act like I'm consistently satisfied by penetration alone. Asks to rehearse this lie in real time for his reassurance. I balk because lying is a moral line for me. He says, "You're making me feel punished." Then he begins to weaponize public morality. "If you go around telling people I need help, they'll judge me," he says. He says people will think I'm weak, as if weakness is a crime. He frames vulnerability as a social death penalty. I try to point out he's weaponizing shame. He counters with therapy speak and righteous silence. One late night, he cries while watching a documentary about self-image. I tell him gently that crying is okay, but coercion is not. He looks at me like I cut him open and left a mirror inside. We start to have small revolutions in the apartment. Revolutions where I reclaim small things like music choice and pillow arrangement. He calls these micro-betrayals and keeps a tally. The tally is a spreadsheet softer than his mood swings. Friends notice, then they stop noticing because they don't want to pick sides. Gabrielle suggests I stay with her sometimes. I do, and it becomes an oasis of normalcy. In Gabrielle's kitchen, I remember what laughter feels like without strings. I also remember how complicated leaving feels. It's not just a physical packing of clothes. It's a long list of unpaid rent checks, shared playlists, and awkward social calendars. I practice leaving in my head like it's a script for a movie I can't star in. One night Marcus calls me screaming about loyalty. He says I'm choosing resentment, like it's a moral failing. He tells me to choose love, as if love is a binary toggle. The next day at work I get an email about a mandatory training. Gender sensitivity this time, sick timing, hilarious coincidence. I sit through a presentation about consent and emotional labor. The irony tastes bitter and metallic. I go home and he demands I prove that I've learned something. Asks me to roleplay gratitude while he reads a chapter from a dating blog. There is no end to the new rules. He begins to insist I adopt different names for things in bed. One night it's the summit, another night, the ceremony. He assigns ritual names like a weird festival organizer. I laugh at first, then it becomes oppressive like bad weather. I notice how many times he refuses to apologize without qualifying it. Every apology is a "but" sandwich. "I'm sorry, but you don't understand" is his favorite recipe. It eats away at actual remorse. I start to write a list called "Real Apologies" in my journal. The list is empty for a long time. He begins to escalate into controlling where I sit at parties. He tells me who I should be friends with casually. That is the moment I realize control is moving toward property. One afternoon I tell him I'm going to a book club meeting. He demands I take him along, so he can see the way I talk about us. I refuse and he storms out like a slam poem. He texts me from the cafe 3 towns over asking for forgiveness. He signs the message "yours" in humility. The phrase is performative and sickening. Rachel tells me to document everything, like it's a legal drama. I start saving screenshots of texts with dates like fossilized proof. It helps later, but it's not happiness. I try a serious breakup talk in the kitchen under fluorescent light. He uses the crying trick desperately, a practice thing now. He says I'll hurt myself, which freezes me into action mode. I call a crisis hotline because I take that threat seriously. They advise me to call emergency services if the threat is imminent. I realize the manipulation is getting weaponized into safety issues. I hang up crying, then I call my sister and Gabrielle. They both insist I stay with them while I figure things out. He begs me to stay, promises to go to intense therapy, to change rules. I am skeptical because promises here mean verbal currency, worthless after a week. Days pass in limbo like bad weather stuck on a map. He purchases a self-help course online and watches 10 lectures about masculine confidence. After each lecture he expects different praise scripts from me. He changes his vocabulary weekly like someone collecting new skins in a game. I feel like an unwilling player in an evolving rulebook. He asks me to audition lines into his phone again and again. My voice becomes a tired instrument. One night he decides to escalate publicity tactics. He writes a blog post about vulnerability without mentioning names. The post reads like a manifesto of entitlement. It praises me for helping him reclaim his identity. I read it and feel invisible in the margins. Comments flood with strangers saying, "Wow, you're so supportive." I get messages thanking me for helping a man heal, as if I volunteered for a charity I never signed up for. Later that week, he changes the rules one more time. New rule. I must say certain phrases during arguments to prove I'm not gaslighting him. He prints a small card with bullet points and leaves it on the nightstand. It looks like a quiz for a class I never enrolled in. My breaking point doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with a spilled cup of coffee and a quiet alarm. I find myself at dawn, fingers on a suitcase handle. Packing feels like moving a museum of small memories. I put a hoodie in, a mug, Gabrielle's scarf I forgot I borrowed. I leave a note that is short and honest. "I can't be your therapist," it says. I slide the note under his door like a coward and a saint at once. He wakes up and reads it and screams my name into the empty apartment like a ghost's chant. I walk down the hallway to Gabrielle's car like someone carrying an ember. He texts me for 3 hours straight with apologies and poetry. He sends video of him crying in the shower to prove failure of masculinity. I ignore them all and breathe like someone learning to swim. Gabrielle makes coffee that morning with more care than anyone's ever made for me. The air tastes like free time and panic mixed together. I file for a temporary restraining order the week after. This is where paperwork enters the love story like a new character. The clerk at the courthouse is polite and bored. She stamps forms like a judge of lost patience. Marcus is furious and theatrical when he gets the notice. He posts a long thread about overreach and caring in a private group. People take sides like it's a town hall. Some call him brave, some call him controlling, others call it messy. I sit in the parking lot with the restraining order document like a talisman. Keeps people at a distance but does not fix my heart. He shows up at my job 1 week later unannounced. Security politely removes him with the efficiency of a machine. He yells, "You're making him into a villain," at me through glass. I watch his mouth move and my lungs are quiet for a moment. Later I get a voicemail that makes my teeth ache. It's him reading from the same script he always does. Apology with a qualifier, a request to reconcile, a claim of improvement. I block his number because the loop is toxic like old wiring. He sends an email through a mutual friend asking to talk like grown-ups. I respond once, no, and then I don't respond again. Things escalate externally when he goes to my landlord complaining. He claims I stole sentimental items, which is false and petty. Landlord calls me for clarification like I'm doing taxes for Faith. I explain and show receipts and photos, trying to be rational in a world gone unstable. The police come once to take a report about harassment claims. They are awkward and bored with domestic messaging like it's small-town theater. They advise mediation and boundaries and paperwork and then go back to the station. Marcus starts showing up at my building with people who tag along like an audience. They loiter on the sidewalk and murmur things about healing and being seen. Neighbors gossip at the mailbox like it's a soap opera. I feel my privacy eroding like sand in a tide. One afternoon there's a knock at my door and a court notice is shoved through. It's divorce papers he filed in a weird, vengeful way to push me out legally. I read the papers like reading a play where I've been cast as villain. I hire a lawyer named Mohammed who is excellent and practical. He tells me blunt things like, document everything, and do not engage. His office smells like coffee and old law books. I realize romance can turn into litigation very quickly. He files counters and we begin a legal dance that feels like frostbite. Court dates create new rituals, new little arguments about who took what pillow. I lose friends who don't want the drama attached to their rooms. I gain a therapist named Claire who actually listens. Claire teaches me boundaries like they're muscles you can train. She says he's the unreasonable one, in a way that comforts more than it criticizes. Her language is practical and bulletproof, unlike his performative talking points. Months pass with paperwork, therapy, and small wins. I finally get an order that keeps him off my property legally. When the officer reads it to him, he looks like someone deflated slowly. He blames the system and posts a thread about due process failings. The last few weeks are a blur of courtrooms and angry blog posts. Friends throw me a small party after the final hearing. They bring pizza and folding chairs like a strange coronation. We reminisce about the little normal things that felt like safety once. I think I'm out of the woods, but the story refuses neat endings. One afternoon I get a text from a number I don't recognize. It says, "I'm sorry I took so long," and nothing more. I block the number and feel heavy and oddly relieved. On my way out of the building I see his car across the street like a bad omen. I keep walking as if my feet know what to do. He follows with a friend in the passenger seat and then slows down. They stare, mouths moving like fish underwater. I keep walking and breathe like a person with practiced lungs. A week later my mailbox has a letter without a return address. It contains a single photograph of us from better times. I fold it up and put it in a drawer like a relic. I delete the thread of messages where he tries to implicate me in his trauma. No closure comes in tidy packages. Closure is messy, bureaucratic, partial. The last scene isn't cinematic. It's a small legal clerk stamping papers. I move into a new apartment with cheaper rent and nicer windows. I buy new curtains on discount day and hang them myself. They are crooked at first and I let them be crooked. People ask if I'm okay and I lie sometimes and tell the truth other times. I learn to be small and fierce in equal measure. The final nights are active, not achingly poetic. Doors slam more than once. Voices echo at 2 a.m. A police report filed. The unresolved threads keep tugging at the hem of my life. I turn the key in my new door and feel a jagged sort of relief. Mailboxes still whisper. Friends still care. Court dates fade slowly. My heart is heavier and clearer than before. Last line feels like walking away with a box of fragile things. I close the door behind me and the street hums with the same ignorant life. I stand on the balcony and watch a car pull away down the block. The road swallows it like it always does. I breathe in, the air tastes like coffee and used books. The final click is just the lock turning. The story doesn't end cleanly. It tilts and waits. I go inside and the light in my apartment is crooked but mine.